listening to Second Wind with Joyce Buford, where women who are ready to expand their life adventure discover the tools to stop playing small and tap into the courage required to enjoy their second wind. Welcome. Welcome to Joyce Buford and Second Wind. This is a treat to be with you today because this is information that you are going to find so valuable. If you are a couple and that you are in a time of decision making about your marriage, or if you're a woman that has gone through divorce, sometimes it's very interesting to hear the valuable things that you missed by not knowing Deanna Bryant. She has a wonderful message for us today, and a message that whether you are in this situation in your marriage or have experienced it, it's a message you can share. And so I really encourage that you stay with us today and you listen to the valuable information that Deanna is going to share with us. Now, Deanna is a mother of 2 adult children and 1 teenager. I love the way she divided that out. Because if you've got a teenager, you all know that. They're very special. Now, she has been married 25 years and lives in Cleveland, Tennessee, just north of Chattanooga, and attended Lee University and the University of Tennessee for her master's, to arrive at her first career, which is teaching English, both in high school and college. She loves teaching and mentoring children and young adults in a way that enriches them personally and academically. Then she retired, much to their sadness, I'm sure, at the colleges, all of the teaching locations. And she embarked upon another career, a very important career, that she was guided there through the synchronicity of her life. In that in midlife, relationships can grow difficult, they can grow tired. They almost need a resurgent of energy and love. Even though the couple may still be in love, there are certainly trials that you go through. Midlife divorce has the highest percentage of any other age group, and she and her husband were struggling with their marriage. Sustaining a long-term marriage can be a challenge. So she's teaching us today and sharing with us because she's walked this path and was so committed after what she learned to commit more time to build her skills and to become a coach for rebuilding relationships and marriages, which I think is a big hoorah these days. Through her experiences of reclaiming and enriching her life, she had a passion and a button to turn on inside her spirit that said, I've got to help people. And that's what she's doing. So welcome, Deanna Bryant. Yay!
Yes, thank you, Joyce. I am just pleased to be here. I could not have said or explained my passion any better than that.
Well, I explained to you that I divorced 20 years ago. So I so appreciate, and back then, I don't know, we struggled getting somebody that could really complete and support us the way that we needed. And so we ended up in divorce. But I love that you, having gone through this, saved your marriage, felt so committed. So how did you put your career back together? I mean, you were already a teacher, but you sort of changed a bit in your focus. So what did
I loved being a teacher, and my kids have made fun of me. Why would you ever be a teacher? You don't make any money. And I said, because I truly loved teaching skills and mentoring kids and helping them see the possibilities.
Yes.
So when I decided to change careers, those were the things I was passionate about: mentoring, teaching skills, helping people live up to their abilities that they all have. So I thought, how can I do that in a different way? And so I went back to coaching school, and then I got a business coach, because I thought, well, I know how to coach, but I don't know how to run a business. I've never been an entrepreneur, and it's so different. So I got a business coach, and she said, well, you can't coach everyone. You've got to niche down. You've got to get a group of people that needs help. And I thought, midlifers in marriage. It was just something I was passionate about. Obviously, I was surrounded by a bunch of couples that were in midlife. My husband and I had already gone through what I call our big marital crisis, and we had come out on the other side. And that was just where my passion was. And so I thought, that's what I'll do. That's exactly what I'll do. And since embarking on that, I have heard so many coaches that don't coach couples say that the people they're coaching in midlife, almost all of them talk about the struggles they're having in their marriage.
Yes,
it's a common thing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. But I was interested in knowing your path. I know you did the coaching, and then you sort of tried coaching, and you were so right. As a coach myself, yeah, I didn't know how to run a business. There's a lot more to it than just being an entrepreneur that says, hang your shingle and they will appear, sort of like the baseball field. Didn't happen. So anyway, tell us how you prepared for that specialized journey that you were going to take.
Well, when I decided to do my niche in marriage, obviously I took my personal experience, because my husband and I did get someone to mentor us, to teach us how to have a successful relationship. So obviously I have taken into my own practice some of those teachings that I got from him. So there's that doing it myself. But then I went to the Gottman Institute. The Gottman Institute is run by John Gottman and his wife. They have been researching what makes marriage work for years. They have a body of research that is just unbelievable. And he's written many, many books. And they also have an institute there that you can take courses to help you understand helping couples in their marriages and what makes it work. So it's designed for people who want to help couples in marriage. So I took those courses as well, read every book he's written, as well as I did my own research. I found great teachers that have written books. I've taken, courses along the way. So not only have I done, work in an institution or with a group, but I've also done my own homework, because as a teacher, I was always a researcher. So it's been very easy for me. I love to learn new things. I love researching things and getting down to the nuts and bolts of things, and then applying those skills, teaching them to other people where they're simpler to understand, So that's kind of how I got here, and some of the training that I went through.
Right. So what is some of the most common issues that I'm going to call them beliefs that we grow up with, or that flare up their angry little heads? They seem very calm when we get married, and then as life goes on, they start coming out more and more and more, because we learned them in our birth family, our family of birth, or who raised us if you're adopted. And but they become almost tools that will defeat our marriages.
Yeah, so those are our family of origin stories. And we come, we are influenced by the environment that we grow up in. We're influenced by, our families, the messages we heard from parents or caregivers, by teachers, by people in our church. We take on the messages we have heard because, we grow up, we're little, we're blank slates, and we have we don't know what a boundary is. We don't know what is true for us. So we take on whatever we're told or whatever we see as this is the way it is. So for couples, what happens is they're bringing in two family systems, not just one family system, but two. And now we've got it's all, I think of it like a blended family. It's your kids, my kids, and now we're going to come together and hope we can all live in harmony. And we all know how hard that is for a blended family. Yes. Well, it's very similar when couples get married. They're bringing in and blending two different families. Yes. So what happens is, I'm going to give you an example of my own life. I grew up in a very religious home, and I was taught that, women serve their husbands. They don't withhold sex. They let their husbands lead and make decisions. So this is my frame of reference coming into my relationship. And so what happens is I come into the relationship, and when I don't like something ruffles my feathers, I don't say anything about it. I'm just going to suck it up. Right. Because number one, I think I'm not supposed to. Number two, I've never seen a woman speak her truth to her husband before, unless it was very ugly. And that never turned out well. So, and for me, my mother specifically divorced a lot. So I'm thinking I can't say anything. I've got to keep it in the middle of the road. So I'm building all these resentments. This is the messages I'm bringing here. I'm building all these resentments. I'm not saying anything. And then I am a ticking time bomb. And I think that happens if you grow up in a family too, where you weren't heard. If you have parents that really didn't listen to you, did not give you a voice, or when you voiced things, they shut you down, you're always also going to be that spouse that doesn't want to open up. Yes. Well, and a lot of times we say, well, it's men that don't want to open up. Well, it is true. A lot of times men are not taught how to express emotions or feelings because their dads did not. So we're bringing that in. So we bring those things into our relationship. So I was a ticking time bomb, and that caused problems in my marriage because I'm not really screaming and hollering, but man, that covert ugliness that would come out was horrible, Yes. Now my husband grew up in a family where the dad was the leader and he ran the home with iron fist. So then we've got a man that's coming in here and wants to run everything with an iron fist. I'm not happy about that because I've got kids and I don't like that kind of iron fist. So here we go. He's bringing in his stuff. I'm bringing in, no, that's not how we're going to do things because my dad didn't run things with an iron fist. So here we go. So we're going to have conflicts over raising the kids. And we did. So you bring that, and then financial situations. Let's face it, finances is one of the huge issues in marriage. You've got a spouse that comes from a family that they're scared of losing all their money, so they hang on to it. They never spend it. It's like they're miserly. You got another family that has money and they like to spend it and enjoy life. Now mesh those two together, and there you go. You got a conflict. Right. Because one's going to want to enjoy the money. One's going to be like, no, we got to hang on to it. Then you got to come to a middle of the road. And it's no fun to come to, because somebody's going to have to give to some degree. And a lot of times we want to dig our heels in and say, my way is the right way. This is the way it should be. And that's going to cause more trouble than really you even realize. And so that's what ends up happening.
Right. I'm sharing something in my life. I wasn't really very strong with money management, nor even understand it, because I never really saw it in my family. And my ex-husband was very strong. and he was very, but we had no communication skills. So, although we were both trying to adapt, we had no skills to really adapt. So I see that in many marriages,
Mhm.
you know.
Absolutely. And that was one of the reasons I started this, is because I think it's not that couples intentionally let the relationship go.
Right.
I don't think they intentionally stop talking to each other. I don't think they intentionally hurt each other.
Mhm.
But I think what happens is we are not taught the skills of how to communicate, how to forgive, how to work with differences, how to accept each other's differences.
Right.
We're not taught it. We get married, everything's rainbow and butterflies. People tell you at the beginning, oh, marriage is hard work. And you're like, oh, no, not with this wonderful person. This is going to be just like the movies. And
Yes.
then,
Cinderella.
oh, absolutely. And it all is going to be beautiful. And then when it doesn't turn out that way, we're disillusioned. And I really think so many marriages, in fact, I think any marriage that is struggling, first, go to the drawing board, learn some skills, practice them. And if it still doesn't work, if it's still going down the tubes, if one of you is not on board and the other one can't live with it anymore, then consider what to do next. But first, try to learn some skills that none of us come into a relationship with.
Mhm. Right.
Just no training, no teaching. And I even believe that, everything is a honeymoon and then we have kids. And that's beautiful for a while when you have that new baby. But things get complicated. Mamas get tired. Daddy's still expecting to have the same kind of attention, but mama's too tired to give that kind of attention. So there we have our first marital crisis.
Yes.
Then,
Eh,
you got teenagers. Nobody has time. We've got schedules. We've got work, and nobody has time to focus on the marriage. Now here's another marriage crisis. And we just go through these marriage crises along the way. And I think, if we would stop every time there was a crisis and say, okay, let's go talk to somebody about this, we would never get this place in midlife. But we don't. We wait
Right.
till it's as bad as it can possibly be. And then we don't even know if we want to keep going,
Right.
but we don't know this.
Yeah. I think it's difficult, and in my experience, I found it difficult to find the support, even though they had psychologists on the outside of on their shingle.
Mhm.
It was really difficult to find somebody that was trained
Mhm.
and using the skills of building a marriage.
Mhm.
Is
You're
that common? Have you found others that have tried traditional and been disappointed?
I think so. And I think you and I are of a different generation where, growing up, I don't know about you, but you didn't go to a therapist. You didn't, people, there weren't as many as there are now. And there were very few that were just focused on marriage.
Right.
There were more, mental health, or if you're dealing with, depression, or if you're dealing with issues that, with a job or with extra stress or anxiety, but you didn't have people that specialized in just marriage relationships.
Right.
And the other thing is, a lot of the people don't really go into their listeners. And I think listening is great, but they didn't give skills. Okay, so here is the problem. Let's look at some skills that might turn that around. Instead, they're listening, they're having you talk to each other in the process, but they're not teaching you. 90% of your work is going to be done outside of the work you're doing with a professional. But are you just having them talk in the session and then them go home and do nothing? What are they doing? So I think it is changing slowly but surely. I think there's more research out there on marriage dynamics than there used to be. I remember that it used to be you only went to your pastor if you had marriage problems. It seemed
That's
like
true. Yeah.
Pastors were the only marriage counselors there were,
Mhm.
and that's not the case anymore. There's more books out there now. There's more couples retreats. There's more couples podcasts. I think we have resources today that I guarantee you didn't have when you were going through that.
I agree. And the one thing that I do like about the internet is that you can go all over the world to find a qualified person that will focus on divorce. I mean, such as you.
Absolutely.
Somebody
Yeah.
from Tyler, Texas could go to call you up and go to Tennessee.
That's and that's the beauty of it now. The resources we have. You can get on with people from, like you say, from all around the world. You can get in, couples sessions and webinars all over the place. There's no shortage today. And that's why I think couples don't need to give up before they have tried all of these things first. Even if they're not feeling in love anymore, if they will just give it 6 months to a year and give it all you've got and see if things don't turn around. If not, hats off to you. You can choose what you want to do, but just give it some concentrated effort instead of what I hear a lot of times. Well, they just go and talk to their buddies, or that she just goes and talks to her girlfriends about the problems, but we're not stopping.
Bad.
Exactly.
Bad.
Yeah. Because if I go and complain to my girlfriend, all she's going to do is pat me on the back and tell me he's a jerk. Because she's not looking at my part of the relationship, and there's always my part.
Yes.
And I'm always going to tell what he's doing wrong. I'm not going to talk about my part.
Sometimes we're not aware that those original beliefs that we got in our families at a very young age,
yes,
really contribute. And it doesn't make you wrong that they're
No.
in your life. It just is a factor that contributes to your relationship, positive or negative. And it's like realizing, okay, so I do have a part in this marriage that's going awry or ends up in divorce. I did a part of this damage or change, or however you want to word it. But we all realize it takes two to get married. It takes two to have a divorce.
Yes, it does.
And a lot of times women don't want to step up. If the guy's the bad guy, or the role changes and it's the wife that's the bad girl. And that's not really true. We all have a part in that relationship.
Absolutely.
And we walk away with all these stories that can really turn up some pity and party and victim stories, but they really are only stories, right?
Yes, we do believe a lot of the stories we tell ourselves, whether they are true or not. And I like what you say. You're talking about we're bringing in the stories that we are told, and we're meshing them into the relationship. I really believe that we have a tendency to marry somebody who is going to stir it up for us. They're going to bring a lot of our stuff up to the surface.
Yes.
They're going to challenge our belief system. It's going to stretch us a bit. It's going to stretch them a bit. But, I really believe, and that's something I do in my program, is couples have to tell each other their story, their childhood story, and some of the good, bad, and the ugly of growing up.
Yes.
Because I think that if couples talked more about that and were able to communicate about it, I think they would have more empathy and compassion as to why their spouse does certain things, thinks certain things, feels certain things. It makes sense. My husband's dad was very harsh and controlling, like I said. Well, I can be pretty brash in the way that I speak. I'm pretty just say it. Yeah.
Oh no.
Yes,
You're so
I am.
cute and beautiful. You can't be
No,
that way.
I'm a little brash. And once I understood how that affected him,
Yes.
I had to change but because I had more compassion, I was like, I get why the tone or the way I say things really hits him wrong. And so not only did I understand it better, but I had empathy, and I was willing to say, how can I do this differently? Because I don't want to trigger his past pains. I
Right.
don't want to do that. And that's something of sharing your stories with each other in detail. But you also said the word awareness. We have to be aware of why we feel the way we feel. If something's setting us off, I tell couples, okay, if someone's really triggering you with your spouse, stop for a minute, step away and ask yourself, what is this bringing up for me from my past? Because it's usually always directly linked to some kind of pain, some kind of belief that's coming up from your past.
Right.
That way you're aware.
You mentioned emotion, but I think the most difficult thing I know for me in experience, in my past experience, many people never get down to their emotions. One, they don't understand what they are. They've never put them to words. In other words, I'm really mad, but I don't know why. And we don't research our own issues, which you said you did. You researched yours. You knew what were the hot buttons in your relationship. And when they sit down and tell those personal stories, stressing telling the feelings. What did that feel like when your dad did this and this and this? What did you see? What did that make you feel like when you saw your dad hit your mom or be ugly to your mom? Those are hard for people to come up with. You
They
almost need
really
a
are.
training class. How do you do that with people when you work with them?
Well, usually what I have them do is we take one session where the wife will tell her story, the next one the husband, and what I like to do is, as they're telling it, I like to ask questions. Like,
Nice.
so how did that make you feel?
Yeah.
And because sometimes they don't know how it made them feel.
Yeah.
All they know is my spouse is triggering me to feel a certain way, but I don't know where it's coming from. I can't tell you, it's just there. And so when we go back, then I'm asking questions along the way that how did that make you feel? So when this happens, what comes up for you? And so I am asking feelings along the way. And I also teach couples what the main feelings are. You've got anger, fear, pain, sadness, love, joy, shame, and guilt. And so it is, but we have all of those feelings that come up. And yes, they can be intertwined. Pain and sadness can come together, but anger and pain often comes together because usually behind anger is some kind of pain.
Yes.
So they all do kind of interchange, but what's key in them learning their feelings is when something comes up in their relationship, instead of saying, you always do this, or you never do this, or you're just a jerk, or you're acting like an ass right now. What can happen instead is if you can identify your feeling, you can say, when you, let's say, when you, after I've cooked dinner, go over to the couch and don't help me clear the table, I feel anger, or I feel sad. That way, you're not attacking them. You're just so lazy, you never help me. You're saying, here's what I feel when this happens. That way, we're getting to the feeling behind what the action is. We're not blaming. We're just saying, this is how I feel when. So learning how to share those feelings, identify them, is part of this process.
Yeah. What's the one with shame?
Sure. I talked to a woman today, and her husband wanted her to do something. She was in the middle of doing something at her home, and he wanted her to come be with him someplace else. And it wasn't really something she wanted to do. He didn't ask ahead of time, but he wanted her to come down right then. Well, she didn't feel like doing that at that moment. She didn't feel like that was something she wanted to do. It wasn't really a big deal, but he just wanted her there. Well, he said a good wife would support me and come down here. That is putting shame on someone.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to do what I'm asking you to do or what I want you to do, that I'm going to shame you. Well, what happens is she felt shame.
Mm.
She already was feeling shame because he made her feel like she wasn't a good wife.
Yes.
So now she feels shame.
Mm-hmm.
So that is part of that feeling with shame. And what I tell couples to do, if somebody is shaming you, they're making you feel shame for something, you have the right to say, I give you back your shame.
Mm.
This is your shame. You're shaming me. You don't have to say you're shaming me, but I give you back your shame. I can own what I've done that's wrong. I can allow you to speak to me and tell me, Deanna, when you did this, I felt, but don't shame me, because I'll just have to give you back your shame. I'll own what I do, but that's not for you to shame me. So shame is something we carry too from childhood.
Yes.
If you made mistakes and your parents were real hard on you,
Mm-hmm.
that has developed shame, and you're going to be hard on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If you were not loved and accepted for who you are, you can grow up in shame and not want to share who you really are because you have shame about it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where some of that shame comes from. Now, shame and guilt none of these feelings are bad things. Every one of these has a purpose in our life.
Right.
But we have, we should feel shame and guilt about things. We should. But there are some times when someone wants to put shame on us that is really them not getting their way.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So you have to be careful of carried shame than shame that I've done something wrong.
Right. Yeah. Do we each experience all of those emotions that you listed? They're like 9, 8.
Yes, I believe so. I think we all feel those at some, everybody. I mean, I think they're universal human emotions. We're all going to feel them. I know that really you can list hundreds of emotions and just calling them all sorts of different things. But those are main categories. A lot of things just fall into them. But yes, I think we all do, unless we are sociopaths.
Okay. So how do you encourage somebody to open that curtain of transparency in their marriage? That must be, if they've lived 15 years with no transparency, it's all kind of my secrets are mine. How do you sort of split the curtain so they're willing to share with one another?
Well, I think the first thing is there has to be an understanding that if something doesn't change, neither one of us are going to be happy. You may think, I know women bring 80% of the problems to the table, but men still want connection. They still want a good relationship. They may not be bringing it to the table, but they want ultimately the things we all want. We all want a good, healthy relationship. So what a couple has to see is, this is what we have now, but this is what's possible. Rarely does one or the other think, oh, no, I really don't want that. Nah, I really don't want to get there. Now, you may have a spouse that says, I'm not going to do that. I'm not
Yeah.
going to I'm not going to go to therapy. I'm not going to go to a relationship coach. I don't have a problem. You have the problem. And then that's when the couple is at a crossroads.
Hmm.
So the spouse that wants help, the other one that doesn't, then that spouse that wants help has a choice to make.
Mhm.
And that choice is, I accept it the way it is and go my merry way, or I get out of this relationship. And I don't think every marriage is solvable. I just salvageable. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not, because it has to have two people working hard and not giving 50%. Both of them have to be giving 100%
Mhm.
of themselves to the relationship.
Now, you made a statement I have to go back and pick on a little bit because I want more explanation.
Mhm.
You said women bring 80% of the problems to the table. Is that because we're more emotional, or what is it that you would say that?
Women are taught from a young age to be relational.
Oh,
We talk to other girls. We have these relationships with girls. We're always chit-chatting. We're talking about everything. We're talking about our feelings. We're talking about what bugs us. We're just little chitty-chatty girls, and we're always about relationships. We're the ones taking care of the little brothers. We're the ones taking care of the little sisters. We're always just so nurturing. And I don't know. I think society, you can try to change society all you want. Some of this is just because we're female, and some of it is society. But men, they're all little boys are very relationship to mom. And then there is a certain age that boys are shamed for being mama's boys,
oh, yeah.
or a little titty baby, as I've heard
Mhm.
little boys called. So they're pulled away from mom and that kind of relationship, and they're thrust out with the other bunch of boys that it's let's see who can jump off the highest cliff.
Right.
Let's get in the dirt and fight. We're not talking about feelings. That's not cool. We're going to talk about, let's have some fun. So that's why I think women are just, society has us more relational throughout the entire. Doesn't mean guys don't want that. It's they don't know how. A lot of times society has not made men relationship driven. I really don't.
So is that why the intimacy is so all over the place in couples? A lot of times one or the other one can't connect intimately to create a sexual relationship?
I think the difference between men and women has a great deal to do with it. I think the younger generation is getting better. I think the younger dads are more involved in the everyday than in our
Yes.
generation.
Yes.
They are taking more of the role as helpers, not laying on the couch, while the woman does everything. Still, today, working women are still doing the mass majority of the household tasks. They're still doing it. It hasn't changed that, it is changed some, but women are still carrying the load. But yes, I think that is the situation. And I think as women, or as women, have a tendency to want to talk about the relationship to other women. And when they bring it to their husbands, sometimes they don't realize that their husbands don't know how to do that. And so then we begin to nag and complain and gripe. And that's not the way to do it either. And sometimes we have to learn how to approach men in a different way. And it definitely isn't through begging, nagging, or complaining. That doesn't work. Sometimes it is just simply saying, I want to have more meaningful conversations because I love talking to you. That's a whole lot better than saying, what are you thinking? You never talk to me. Now, how much is he's going to want to talk to you now?
Right.
Probably not at all.
He just left.
Right. Yeah, he just left the room. And a lot of times too, sometimes we don't want to ask our spouse about what they're doing or how it went, because you know what? We're just not real interested.
Mm-hmm.
But it's important to ask them and to intentionally listen to what they were doing, even if we don't get it. My
Mm-hmm.
husband works in a business in IT. I don't understand half of what he says.
Yes.
I really don't.
Yeah.
But I always ask, how are things going? And I listen. Do I understand it all? No. But I make sure he's heard.
Mm-hmm.
These are the things we need to do as well. If you want your spouse to listen to you, you need to do the same kind of listening. And then if your spouse isn't a good listener, sometimes you have to say, did you hear what I just said? Or what do you think about that? It kind of holds them accountable.
Right. Yes.
It's like, I know she's going to ask me a question, or I know he's going to ask me a question. I really need to check in on this,
Yes. Well, there's one other thing I'd like to ask, and it's about boundaries. Do couples need to create their boundaries?
I do believe they do. I do believe they do, because I think not having boundaries sets you up to live a life you feel is not your own,
Mm-hmm.
because you have not allowed space to yourself. You're allowing everyone to tell you what to do, how it's going to be done. Not setting boundaries opens you up to just flow with whatever's out there. Whatever's going on, you just got to flow with it, because you don't have any boundaries. But I do think couples need boundaries. Some of the boundaries they need to have is, I think about couples where they may have a spouse that maybe they're a golf widow.
Yes.
or maybe, the wife takes off every weekend with her girlfriends and they never have time together. Sometimes there needs to be a boundary that says, okay, I would like to spend time with you here, but if I need you to go play golf for this many times, but I also need you to be home here.
Mm-hmm.
That's a boundary. Now, can you for sure get that boundary? Set those boundaries? Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. And you have to accept that. The other one is, some spouses need more time together with the other spouse than vice versa.
Oh.
And here we go. We've got a spouse that wants to spend more time away, maybe doing hobbies, maybe with girlfriends, or a husband that wants to go and do more, but that spouse is like, well, why do you want to go? Well, you don't want to be with me. Why do you have to go? We've got things we can do here, because they don't like that. They don't understand that need. So a boundary is, you know what? I would like for us to do this together, but at this point, I need to go spend time with my friends, or I need to go do this because it makes me a better spouse. So the boundary is, I am spending time with you here, but I'm not going to spend all my time with you. I need that time away. If you don't, you're not taking care of yourself. You can set boundaries as to how you will be spoken to and how you will not be spoken to. That boundary is, when you talk to me that way, I am ending the conversation and I'm going to walk away. I'll come back in 30 minutes and we can try this again. That's a boundary.
Yeah.
You don't have to be verbally abused any more than you deserve to be physically abused. And, physical abuse is very different, but it does have a lot of the same effect, that it damages you, mentally, emotionally, not, it does the same thing to us, but we don't have to allow that.
That's a great, doing boundary work, I think, is really important. I don't, I don't know if they do. That's a good place for the minister to be.
Yeah.
Let's talk about boundaries.
Mhm.
Um, Back in the day, I think we talked about budget, how much a blouse cost for me. I remember that question because it would seem so okay. you know,
Yeah.
that goes all over the place.
Oh,
But,
yeah.
that's a wonderful way for us to use the minister or the whoever that could be to help us shape how our
Mhm.
marriage will go. Or
Mhm.
certainly a coach, anybody that can kind of give us some guidelines. I think
Mhm.
those are difficult things to do, difficult things to talk about in a
Mhm.
wounded marriage, trying to move forward. And yet they've got all of these tender areas that they have
Mhm.
to address,
Mhm.
and they don't have the skills to address them.
Mhm.
So that's where you are so valuable,
Mm.
just to help somebody put that model together so that they
Yes,
have
because
something.
sometimes we just need a mediator.
Yes.
Sometimes we just need somebody to come in, a neutral party that says, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. Okay, say it to each other.
Mhm.
Talk this out with each other respectfully, and try to understand each other and communicate in a way you're not being able to communicate at home. You know, just need a
Mhm.
mediator sometime. Athletes, all sorts of professionals get somebody to help them.
Yes, they do.
They all have coaches, they have trainers, they have mentors.
Mhm.
Why? Because they want excellence.
Mhm.
But in our marriages, we don't want to reach out because that means we have failed. If we're going to family therapy, well, we failed. We're going to couples therapy, well, we failed. No, I think it should be part of marriage. It really should
Yeah.
be part of marriage.
Yeah. The churches have done a good job in trying to maintain those courses. Are there other areas that that couples could reach out or look in their community for
Mhm.
support like this?
I definitely think churches are a great resource, but if a lot of couples don't necessarily espouse some of the church's ideals, but I
Right.
think again, there is no shortage of Googling marriage retreats.
Mhm.
There's no shortage of finding online uh, different places, not only that you can go, but that you can be a part of. Getting with other couples that are in your
Mhm.
same
Yeah.
situation, finding webinars that are teaching some of these things.
Mhm.
It's a great way to do and easy to do. But yes, if church is something and that you feel comfortable with, um, my husband and I did a lot of marriage and couples retreats through the church when we were married very young,
Mhm.
and they were very helpful. But
Yeah.
again, if church is not your thing and your belief system is different than that, there's tons of stuff out there.
Mhm. Now, I you have a website
Mhm.
called
Yes.
reviveyourmarriage.com.
Yes.
And on that site, have you gone into group counseling like that? Do you have a program
I
on your
have not.
website?
I have thought about it. I have thought
Yeah.
about doing group sessions like that, but I haven't ventured out into that yet.
Yeah.
But, I've been thinking about it and thinking, if you could get just several couples in a room to
Yeah.
do some retreat and training, that is
Yeah.
on my next to-do list.
How long is that list?
Oh, it's very, very long. It's very, very long.
Yeah. Do you, when you're working with a couple, do you keep them both coming to all sessions so that the
No, I
conversation
work
happens?
sometimes I when I first start, I see the woman first, and then I see a
Okay.
man first, and then
Yes.
I bring them both back together, and then we talk
Mhm.
about the relationship. But I do think, when my husband and I were getting help, he would have individual sessions with us and then group sessions with us.
Mhm.
And I thought that was really effective because I do believe the couples have to work on the relationship, but a lot of times they've got to work on their issues as well and
Yeah.
how they're coming to the table. And
Mhm.
sometimes getting them alone and talking about that, they don't have, if we're talking about a problem they're having and the other spouse is going, yeah, that's what I said. That's not real helpful. So if we
Been
can,
here before.
yeah, I don't need that. So sometimes
Right.
just getting with them individually is also helpful too. So we can talk about what we're noticing.
But you're doing your coaching in live, or, do you do it over the internet?
I do everything over the internet. Mhm.
Oh, you
I
do
do
everything.
Zoom. Yeah, yeah.
So
I
COVID
use
didn't
Zoom.
stop you at all.
No, it didn't. It really, really didn't. So it's actually working out. And a lot of people are doing that now. Even doctor's
Yes.
appointments now are going to telehealth, and many doctors are keeping it that way unless there's testing they need to come in for.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
it's becoming a way of the future.
Really, because really, before, I mean, COVID, as though as horrible as it was on our everyday life, our
Absolutely.
relationships, it in some relationships, it really brought them to a disaster point early.
It did. It either brought people closer or tore them apart. It was like there was no in between.
Yes. So if somebody is inspired by this
Mhm.
podcast today, how would they get to you?
Sure. They can go to my website at reviveyourmidlifemarriage.com. There is a work with Deanna page, and there is also a contact page. If you go to the work with Deanna, it talks about what I do in my program. And
Mhm.
then if you go to the contact page, there is a place for you to fill out a questionnaire, and then I'll get in touch with you. I usually offer an hour discovery call where we just chat where you are. I may not be your good fit. You may
Mhm.
not be a good fit for what I offer. So there's
Mhm.
it's no obligation. We talk for an hour, we see, do you want to do this? Don't you? Are we a good fit?
Mhm.
Are we not? So that's where they can get me there. And then I also on my site have a free resource they can sign up for, 3 simple steps to start improving your marriage. And then you can find Revive Your Midlife Marriage on Facebook or Instagram. And then, of course, my podcast, Revive Your Midlife Marriage podcast on any podcast app.
And that's a weekly release?
Yes, every Tuesday I release another episode on that podcast, and it's all about midlife marriage.
Great. I bet you get some through listening to the podcast, because
Yes,
podcasts have been so
yes,
great for people educating and expanding their lives.
yes. It has created a greater reach. So I have clients from anywhere. They're listening, mostly the U.S. Um, but yeah, you listen to the podcast and you think, okay, I'm hearing all these things that make a marriage work, but you know what? I don't know how to do this at home. So let me give
Mhm.
you a call. So that's
Yes.
how that kind of works.
Yeah. Normally, when you work with a couple, is there a norm of how long you work together?
Yes,
Um,
yes, we do. We work 6 months together and we meet once a week for 6 months. And we work through all those issues that come up. And then after that time, 6 months later, I offer for a free session to come back and let's just check in.
oh,
How are we
great.
doing? What have been the challenges? If they feel like they have more help, then I can do that on a session by session basis. I
Oh,
wouldn't,
yeah.
into the
Right.
6 months, but the 6 months is the intensive.
Right. Yeah. And do you go by a book? I know you have a program that's laid out. Did you create that program? Did it
I
help
did.
develop it?
I did. I created it based on what I think are the pillars of a good marriage. And the different areas that we talk about are, we all know what what is good in a marriage, but we really
Yeah.
just don't know how to get there. But yes, it's based on the Gottman research. It's based on that training that I went through there, my own experience, my own life experience, and my own research. What are some of those things that come up? So that's kind of where I built this kind of a program for couples. And of course, no couple is the same. So I do not do it the same each time because they're individuals. They're coming with different stuff. So, how we work through those things is very individual.
I know some people, when they work with people, if they're um, being influenced by chemical, alcohol or drugs, they require stopping. And I don't know, do you have a process like that, a limitation or I don't know, what am I looking for? What's the word?
Well, it would be very hard for me to be able to make progress with a couple where one of the main issues is a substance abuse issue or a porn addiction or chronic cheating.
Right.
Those are cases that I would not take because I am not a therapist.
Those require the therapist.
I would think so, because I think probably that person with the addiction that's causing the marriage problem needs a therapist. They're not going to need coaching and learning new skills. They've got something going on a personal level that has to be dealt with through other means, because that's not going to be solved by learning skills about how to be a better spouse,
Yeah.
So,
good point.
I mean, I'm saying that somebody that comes in and says, okay, I'm working on this, I'm going to AA, or I'm seeing a therapist. Okay, well, we can work on that relationship. I'll partner with the therapist, but I'm not going to be a therapist. I'm not specialized in addiction.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't do that.
Right. Well, we're coming to the end of this fabulous session that's been chocked full of so much good information. I wish I could hear the applause out there of all of them going, yay, this was good. I'm sharing this.
I hope so.
Yes, I always like to ask a sort of roundup question. This was a subject that can be stressful, sad, frustrating, just like you're in the marriage. And I am wondering how you have found this to be your success story. Is this your success story? And what would that look like? What is the name of that success story?
My success story. I have a lot of success stories, but if we're talking professionally and in this thing, my success story is watching couples move from this place of feeling stuck and being stuck with no skills, unhappy, dissatisfied, disconnected, work and begin to work on these specific skills and see them coming in week to week saying, oh, that really was helpful. We've had some good conversations this week, or this is really changing. And to watch their faces change as they come in week to week, as the relationship begins to improve, because you can see it on their faces. You can see it by the way they're looking at each other, the way they're talking. And to see those transformations, that would be my success story.
Wow. Knowing that you are changing many lives is a great success.
It is. It is.
Yes. Yay.
It is a joy. That's why I like service work. I've always been into service type, professions, because I like serving people. I like helping people. That's just my thing. I would never work in the corporate world.
I think there are several that want to leave the corporate world.
Exactly.
So anyway, I thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with my audience this morning.
Oh, thank you.
When are we? We're now at 2:00, but they'll hear it whenever. But, it's just so exciting and promising, I think, for the future of marriages,
Mm,
happiness of individuals,
mhm,
success of families,
mhm.
um, that people can reach out to people such as you, Joy, um, and just repair a relationship. It's just awesome. So I
Yes.
thank you very much for your work. It is
Well, thank you for
needed.
having me on here. What a pleasure it's been.
So, all right, now, you listeners out there, this is, I always like to give you an assignment. And this assignment is to reach out to your friends. Reach out to somebody, either make a Facebook post that says, go listen to this wonderful woman on Joyce Buford's Second Wind, who found her second wind in helping people. And it's so important that you say Deanna Bryant is her name, because she is indeed a woman that walks with passion and purpose. And you have the opportunity to save a marriage. So, what a great, great thing to have this week. I ask also that you praise yourself, love yourself, and do something really wonderful this week. Only you can do this. I can't. I can tell you certain things, but you make the difference. So, have a great week. And again, thank you for being on with us today on Second Wind. This show is for you. Thank you for being here. Bye.
Joyce Buford returns next week at the same time for another edition of Second Wind. Through the Joyce Buford Empowerment System, women are receiving the support they need through their transitions and are able to reclaim their true purpose with confidence. They receive the tools they need to map out new lives. You can find out more about her coaching services at joycebufordempowers.com.